Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for tuning back in. Today is Thursday. Not as many videos this week, yet again. Just crazy busy, which is fine. I got 20 entries of your favorite card from your childhood, and you guys nailed it. You guys did the exact... You hit the spirit of the request perfectly. I didn't want your most valuable card. I wanted your favorite, and all 20 of you sent me cards that mostly have no value, no financial value, but have a lot of sentimental value, which is perfect. So I'm going to read through the first 10 and show you the photos, tell you the stories, and then I'm going to have to do the second 10 next week. So stick around. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you do, because I've got a second portion of this coming up, and tomorrow I'll have Attic Find Friday. Monday, I have my first episode with Chris Sewell, which I think the first one's going to be on his channel, and then we're going to rotate every 2 weeks. It'll be on my channel, the second one, and then be on his, the third one. All right, here we go. I'm going to read through these, and let me know in comments which one is your favorite, and I appreciate it. All right, the first one is David of Peacemaker Cards. He writes, "My favorite childhood card is this Johnny Bench rookie I received from my grandparents." And I'll show the card after I'm done reading. He writes, "Growing up, my father was serving in the Navy, so I would only see my grandparents once every 1 to 2 years. Whenever we did visit them in Cincinnati, they would have some Reds cards they picked up from a flea market. I was excited when I saw this card since Bench was my favorite player. I stopped collecting in the 1990s when work and family took up all my time and money, but I kept all my cards. When I returned to the hobby this year, I pulled them out and it brought back so many great memories. Despite the creases, round corners, and some staining, I wouldn't trade it for a gem mint copy." Here's the card. It's beautiful. This is such a great card to have as a memory, and I'm happy for David that he has that. Next up, we have Brent, longtime subscriber and a Ricky Henderson super collector. And I will have a Ricky Henderson super collector on my channel for an interview next month, but it won't be Brent. It's somebody that Brent referred me to. Brent writes, "Hi Mike, I was the rare breed, a Canadian Oakland A's fan. There are literally dozens of us," Brent says.
There are dozens of us. Dozens!
"I like them because having Ricky, McGuire, and Canseco in the late 80s made them a super fun team to watch. Of course, I like the Jays as well, but I was always drawn to watching A's highlights the next morning. Being Canadian, hockey was king, so I have a decent hockey card collection, but my first foray into baseball cards was with the 1991 Upper Deck set. I was 11 years old. I remember Upper Deck were more expensive than Topps at my corner store. I liked the look and the card stock, so I went for them. I had 2 chase cards. First of all, the A's had a highly touted pitching prospect named Todd Van Poppel. I think all of us from that era remember Todd Van Poppel, who, if I remember, was the card to chase. I remember Pack pulling his card and celebrating like I was going to be rich in 20 years. Yes, very relatable. I've attached a photo so we can all bask in his glory. I will show that photo in a moment. The other was the Ozzie Canseco rookie card. Since he was Jose's twin brother, he must eventually be as successful as him, right? Yes. I also remember squealing like a girl when opening the pack. There was Ozzie right on top. Both attached pics are taken out of my 1991 Upper Deck set album that is still in my closet. This set was special to me as it was the first set I ever collected. I know the set now may be worth about $10, but I'll never sell it. It also taught me a lesson about prospecting. I never would have thought the top rookies in the set would have been Mike Mussina, Chipper Jones, and a young man named Maurice Vaughn. It taught me early on that the most hyped rookies rarely are the best investments in the medium or long term. Since those days, I've essentially become a single player collector, but I still enjoy full set collecting and going through some of my old sets." Here is the Todd Van Poppel rookie card. And here is the Ozzie Canseco with Jose in the same card. Great story, Brent. Next up, we have Ron in Lewiston, Idaho, not to be confused with Lewiston, Maine. "Good afternoon. I wanted to share my favorite baseball card. It is a 1962 Topps Hal Renniff, number 139. It has a very special meaning to me. My late father went to school with Mr. Renniff from kindergarten through graduation. My father went into the Navy and Mr. Renniff went on to play baseball for the New York Yankees. I had the pleasure of knowing him most of my life until his passing. got to play golf with him, and enjoyed many great stories over the years. My favorite saying that he would always tell my father was that your kid had more of my memorabilia than I do. I have all of his cards and a binder full of photos from his years in baseball. At Mr. Reniff's memorial at his high school, I was able to meet Mr. Al Downing. He spoke about the years he played with Mr. Reniff and how they had kept in touch and played golf over the years. Great story, Ron. I actually looked up, and here's the card. I actually looked up Hal Reniff's career, because I have to admit I'd never heard of him, and he was actually a World Series champion in 1961, even though he didn't pitch in that World Series. Next up is Michael. He writes, I ran across your channel and heard you ask about your favorite childhood card. This made me remember a very special moment in my childhood, but I could not pick one card, so I went with 3. I think you'll understand after you hear my story. It's a little long, but hopefully you'll think it's worth it. I began buying packs in 1961 when I was 7 years old. Although I lived in Indiana, the Mantle Maris home run race was front and center to everyone in the country at that time. I was a huge Mantle fan, and pulling his card from a pack was always my goal. I had already acquired the 61, 62, and 63 Mantle cards from packs when in the summer of 63, my mother came home from a garage sale and handed me a stack of approximately 50 baseball cards with numerous rubber bands holding them together. When I began going through them, I couldn't believe my eyes. The stack contained cards from 1957 and 58. I asked my mother if they had more stacks, and she stated they had a huge box full. At this point, I began to beg my mother to take me back so I could buy a few more stacks, as she had told me they were 10 cents a stack. Since it was only a few miles from our house, she finally relented and took me back. I remember being worried on the trip to the sale that all the cards would be gone, but upon arrival, there was a huge box filled with stacks of cards rubber banded together. I began to look through the stacks, hoping to find a Mickey Mantle, and finally my mother, who was getting a little impatient, just asked the lady if she would sell us the entire box for $2. The lady eagerly agreed, and suddenly I owned thousands of old cards. After hours of sorting, I found all the cards were between 1951 and 58, with the majority 55 to 58. They were all mostly tops, but plenty of Bowman and a sprinkling of Redman tobacco. Keep in mind, I had never seen cards this old, and I was surprised that the 51 and 52 Bowmans were smaller than the other cards. There were tons of stars, including Ted Williams, Hank Aaron, Jackie Robinson, Sandy Koufax, Pee Wee Reese, and on and on. I remember duplicate rookie cards of Harmon Killebrew, Frank Robinson, and Roger Maris, although they weren't known as rookie cards at that time. But for me, the biggest gets from the box were the Mickey Mantles from 56, 57, and 58. These remain my favorite cards, and it's impossible to pick just one. As with all the cards I acquired that day, they remain raw with the normal flaws of a childhood collection. You may not believe me, but I wouldn't trade these Mantles for gem mint examples. To me, these are priceless memories of my childhood. I never counted how many cards were actually in that box, but I would estimate at least 5,000. Obviously, there were many duplicates, which I was able to trade over the years to acquire other cards, which helped me in completing my sets from the 50s and 60s. While it was a great find for me, I can't help but think about the kid who originally owned these and had them sold by his mother for $2. While it's probably not much consolation, rest assured they have been loved by me for all these many years, especially the Mantles. Signed, Mike from Indiana. You can see the cards here. You got the 56, which is in poor condition, 57, which is in pretty decent, but the 58 looks awesome. The centering, corners look good, the color, man, very, very cool, Mike. Good story, thank you. Now we have Bart. Bart writes, my favorite card from my childhood is my Scottie Pippen rookie. I got it from my cousin, who was more into football and baseball cards than basketball cards. Being from Arkansas, me and my friends liked Pippen since he was born in Hamburg, Arkansas, and went to the University of Central Arkansas. At the time, Arkansas didn't have much to brag about as far as professional athletes. Sounds a lot like Maine. Pippen obviously changed that when the Bulls started winning championships. A few of my teachers from grade school and high school went to college at UCA at the same time Pippen did, and remembered seeing him on occasion. In fact, my 6th grade teacher brought a yearbook from UCA, and it had a picture of Pippen in it. Though many friends tried their best to trade me out of this card, I held onto it and still have after all these years. Though it would never get a PSA 10, or even an 8 for that matter, it has a lot of sentimental value to me. Here's the card. He's right. It wouldn't get a 10, but that's not what this is about. What a great memory for Bart. Next one is my friend Rob, who is the commenting collector on Facebook and a longtime commenter on my channel. He writes, "Hi Mike, during the summer of 1980, George Brett's chase of the magical 400 batting average was all the talk and excitement of that baseball season. Including myself, I was captivated by the potential of George Brett finishing the season with a batting average of 400 or more, a milestone that had not been achieved since Ted Williams finished the 1941 season with a batting average of 406. And by the way, I don't think it ever will again, as long as we have 5 pitchers from each team coming in who all specialize and throw 102 miles per hour. You're not going to find anybody batting close to 400 again. On September 19th, Brett had a remarkable 400 batting average. That was the last day he would achieve that magical mark, as he went 0 for 4 and finished the season hitting an astonishing 390. Therefore, when Topps released its 1981 baseball set, I was obsessed with pulling a George Brett number 700 card from a wax pack. For that reason, at the age of 13, I took all the money I had saved up and rode my bike to the drugstore and purchased an entire 36-count box of 1981 Topps baseball cards for around $10. It paid off, and I was able to pull the 2 Bretts that I'm holding in the picture. One of the cards I'm showing the back, which features the awesome 390 stat line. Interesting fact, the 1981 Beckett Guide had the Topps number 700 George Brett listed at $1. Today, it can easily be found for less, but nonetheless, because of the memories, it remains my favorite childhood card." And here's Rob showing off his 2 cards, wearing his commenting collector sweatshirt. I still don't have any gear for my channel. Maybe someday. Well done, Rob. Thanks for sharing your story. All right, now we have Arlen. He writes, "Hey Mike, thanks to my awesome dad, when I started getting into sports, he started taking me to card shows, so I probably got a box of 1980-81 Topps in 1982. So the pictured cards were all pulled from one box by an 8-year-old and have been my favorites for 40 plus years. There are 4 Magic rookies, 4 Bird rookies, and a bunch of Dr. J and Kareem cards to boot. So here are the cards that Arlen pulled. It looks like the Jack Sikma in the top left is signed. So Arlen, I'm going to need a story from you on that. Did you get that signed through the mail? Did you get it in person? Am I just mistaken? Is that not signed? Let me know. All right, next up we have Mad City Brew, whose name is Jesse. Mad City Brew, another great commenter. He writes, "Hello, JWH. I really enjoy all the YouTube videos and you're a great storyteller. Just a little background about me. I've been collecting most of my life, but just like you, took a break to start a family. Got back into cards around 2002 or so and got my son into collecting sports cards. For your future episode, my son will be getting my collection and knows how valuable the cards are. I chose to share the 1984 Fleer Super Special Stars, Tim Raines and Al Oliver cards. I'm originally from Santiago, Chile, and adopted. So I was raised in a very small farm town just 25 miles west of Madison, Wisconsin, back in the 1980s. In those days, when you went to the grocery store in the checkout aisle in between the gum candy bars, there would be a hobby box of either Topps or Fleer cards for 25 cents per pack. My parents would allow me to get a pack or 2 every time I went to the store. Each time I opened a pack of cards made me extremely happy because I could, in a small way, relate to some of the players from another country. It also led me to check out a book at the library about the great Roberto Enrique Clemente Walker, who turned into my favorite baseball player of all time. Also, on a side note, my son's middle name is Walker, and from the day he was born, has a 8x10 framed photo of Roberto, Aaron, and Mays on his bedroom wall. I've attached 2 pictures of the 84 Fleer Super Special Stars card. One is that my cards are in my childhood baseball card album, and second, I've lined them up. To me, this was and still is one of the coolest cards I've ever owned. Thank you for taking the time to read this long email. Keep up the good work on your YouTube channel. Take care and best wishes to your family." And I've got to be honest, here are the 2 cards. I never knew these 2 cards lined up like this. So this is really cool. I don't know. This escaped my knowledge. I think this is really neat. It's one photo created 2 different cards. And then here they are on the bottom right of his binder. Neat. Very neat story. Last but not least is Mike D from New Jersey. Mike writes, Mike, really enjoy your channel. This is my favorite card, a 1984 Topps traded Dwight Gooden I've had since I was a kid. It's in really good shape, but the card is worth a lot less now than it was then. One of my first MLB games that I went to was in 1984, and I saw one of Gooden's early starts. He was so dominant and fun to watch, probably the best pitcher in baseball from 1984 to 86. As a Mets fan, I would check the newspaper after each one of his starts and followed his stats religiously, particularly in 85 when he had one of the best seasons ever. The 1984 Topps traded set was the first set I ever bought and also still have it. And you're probably familiar with the card. Here is Mike D's example of it. Great, great stuff. Thank you, Mike, for sharing this. And thank you to all of you who have shared your stories and your cards with me. I think this is awesome. I'm curious to hear everybody's thoughts on their favorites of all these 10. I appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great end of your week.